In 1943, the Germans initiated a new project intended to act as a heavy infantry assault vehicle. It was to represent a combination of heavy armor and a powerful cannon, equally adept at destroying enemy strongpoints and defeating enemy armored vehicles. The speed, however, was seen as less important. These requirements initially sparked confusion over its precise role, resulting in an argument within the German military over whose responsibility was to develop it. If the vehicle was designated as a Sturmgeschütz, it would belong to the artillery, but if it was designated as a Panzerjäger, it would belong to the tank branch. This feud was finally resolved by Heinz Guderian, chief of the Army General Staff, when he listed the vehicle as a Panzerjäger with 12.8 cm Pak L 55 on Tiger II chassis, better known today as a Jagdtiger. As far back as the spring of 1942, the German Army General Staff was requesting a 12.8 cm gun mounted on a self-propelled chassis to serve as a heavy assault gun, capable of both supporting the infantry against armored targets as well as fortifications and other targets. The work on such a project finally gained traction in early 1943, when discussions for a suitable chassis were made. Two options were considered, the Panther or the Tiger II. A mock-up was prepared on the hull of a Panther, but this was quickly discarded as being unsuitable. Further work then concentrated on the Tiger II chassis. Henschel was tasked with designing the vehicle, while Krupp was to provide the main armament. Hello dear readers, the Tank Encyclopedia publishing team is delighted to welcome you to 2024, and we are thrilled to present the brand new and updated magazine all pack. Now, you can purchase all 9 issues of Tank Encyclopedia magazine for a special price of $30. Please note that the 8th issue is still free and included in the bundle for your convenience. Visit our store, grab your copy, spread the word, and stay with us for more tank awesomeness that we plan to release this year. That's it for now. Stay tuned. By the 5th of May of 1943, the vehicle was calculated to weigh 75 tons, with plans for the armor to be 200 mm thick on the front, 80 mm on the sides and back, and 30 mm on the roof. The wooden mock-up was inspected by German army officials on the 28th of September 1943. While generally satisfied with the overall design, they requested several changes, the most crucial being the increase of the frontal armor protection to 250 mm and the roof to 40 mm. The amended full-size wooden mock-up was then shown off to Hitler on the 20th of October 1943 at the Troop Training Center in East Prussia. Hitler was delighted with his new vehicle and its production was authorized. As the project received the green light, the work on the first 2 prototypes began in earnest. The first vehicle without the armament was completed at the Nibelungenwerke plant and used for running trials. The second prototype was not finished until the new year. Both prototypes were then delivered to the Army Ordnance Office for testing in February of 1944. The Jagdtiger project immediately ran into numerous production delays. There were problems with the quality of the delivered parts and armored components, with at least one vehicle reported to be unusable for combat due to this. Preparing the necessary tooling also took a prolonged time. The deliveries of the gun and its mount proved to be problematic. The Nibelungenwerks had to grind off up to 40 mm of steel from the inside walls of the casemate in some places to allow the gun to fully traverse. The cradle for the gun was manufactured larger than it was designed to be and thus caught on the front plate. This meant it had to be moved forward slightly, which meant that it now fouled on the whole roof, restricting the depression of the gun. Following a discussion with Hitler on the 12th of October 1944, it was planned to produce just 150 Jagdtigers. The estimated monthly production for the gun was 30, and for the vehicle, 50. On the 25th of October 1944, due to delays in the delivery of these vehicles, Hitler ordered that the 53 available 12.8 cm guns should be mounted on captured Russian or French gun carriages to create ad hoc towed anti-tank guns. By the end of 1944, just 49 Jagdtigers plus the 2 prototypes had been finished, well behind the original schedule. Production was therefore scheduled to run through April of 1945, with 100 Jagdtigers planned. When this order was completed, Nibelungenwerke was to focus on the construction of the Tiger II. The Jagdtiger production would simply switch to the firm of Jung in Jungenthal instead. Despite the slow production at the start of 1945, Hitler increased the original order to 300. By the end of February 1945, just 74 vehicles were completed. The final production numbers are unclear and differ between the available sources. In order to fit the new gun into the Tiger II chassis, it had to be lengthened by 260 mm. On top of this hull, a large flat-sided casemate housed the main gun and 4 of the crew. The engine remained at the back and the transmission in the front, as on the Tiger II, minimizing the changes made to the hull. The Jagdtiger utilized 2 different types of suspension. At least 11 vehicles, including one of the 2 prototypes, were fitted with a suspension developed by Dr. Porsche. It consisted of 4-wheel units, each with a pair of 700 mm diameter steel road wheels on each side. Dr. Porsche managed to convince Hitler of the benefits of this suspension in January of 1944. In theory, it was cheaper and easier to build than the overlapping interleaved torsion bar suspension used on the Tiger and Panther tanks. However, this suspension failed to live up to its desired performance. In particular, it resulted in a lot of shaking on hard roads when driven at 14 to 15 km per hour. Instead, the Jagdtiger was equipped with Henschel torsion bar suspension connected to 9 sets of 800 mm diameter steel wheels running over 80 mm wide tracks on each side. The transmission was the Maybach 8-speed gearbox, which was connected to the Maybach HL230 engine, both of which were used on the Tiger II. This engine was simply underpowered for a vehicle of the bulk of the Tiger II, let alone this even heavier Jagdtiger, offering quite poor overall drive performance. To help speed up the development time of the Jagdtiger, it was to be armed with the same 12.8 cm gun used on the super heavy Maus tank. A design of this gun was officially requested to be ready by the 10th of March 1943, and a month later Krupp submitted its proposal. Development was rather slow, and the first 12.8 cm gun was not ready until the middle of August 1944. Once finished, this new Krupp gun was designated the 12.8 cm Pak Panzerabwehrkanone 44L55 and later redesignated as a 12.8 cm Pak 80. During the initial design of this gun, emphasis was placed on the removal of the muzzle brake, as this allowed the use of Sabo shells. These were estimated to be able to penetrate 245 mm of armor at 30 degrees from 1 km away. Although this shell did not finish development and was not used for the Jagdtiger, the result was that a muzzle brake could not be added, meaning that a lot more recoil energy needed to be dealt with on the mountings for the gun. Traverse for the gun was limited to 10 degrees in both directions, with elevation ranging from -7 to +15 degrees. The armor-piercing high-explosive shell was able to defeat around 230 mm armor at 30 degrees from 1 km away, and had a maximum range of up to 4 km. The high-explosive shell could reach up to 8 km. Ammunition was stored on the floor and in the side walls of the casemate, even using 2-piece ammunition, which is easier to stow. The Jagdtiger could carry just 40 rounds of ammunition. The secondary armament of the Jagdtiger consisted of a single MG34 mounted in the front right of the hull. On the 25th of February 1945, in the vain hope of increasing the Jagdtiger production, Hitler ordered that the 8.8 cm gun be used instead, but nothing much came from this order. The Jagdtiger was protected with 250 mm thick casemate armor, 150 mm thick glacis, and 100 mm thick lower front. The hull sides and rear were 80 mm thick. The thinnest parts of the armor were under the sponsons and over the tracks, which were just 25 mm thick, and under the engine, which was also 25 mm thick. The Jagdtiger had a crew of 6 men. The driver was located in the front left and the radio operator in the front right hull side. The radio operator also had control over the secondary armament. In the casemate were the remaining 4 crewmen. This crew consisted of a commander, front right, the gunner, front left, and the 2 loaders located in the rear of the casemate. The first user of the Jagdtiger was supposed to be the 130th Tank Destroyer Training Battalion, which was scheduled to receive 14 vehicles in March of 1944. Due to production delays, that plan did not materialize, and instead, the first user was the 653rd Heavy Tank Destroyer Battalion, which received 16 vehicles at the end of November 1944, 8 months late. The first company of this unit took 14 Jagdtigers to the Western Front in December of 1944 for the planned offensive in the Ardennes. Due to Allied bombing raids, only 6 Jagdtigers managed to get to the staging area behind the lines at Blankenheim and took no part in the offensive. On the 23rd of December 1944, the 653rd Battalion was instead redeployed in order to take part in Operation Northwind. On New Year's Eve of 1944, 3 Jagdtigers took part in the operation. This unit saw sporadic action against American forces in the Schwenningen-Chiemsee area of southern Germany, but the successes were minor, and after just a few days, the unit was disbanded. On the 4th of January 1945, the 653rd Battalion had a listed strength of just 6 Jagdtigers. By the 9th of January, the number was down to just 2 Jagdtigers in operational condition. Of note on maintenance is that in the period from the 30th of December 1944 to the 26th of April 1945, this battalion had 41 Jagdtigers with a peak operational readiness of 38 on the 15th of March and its lowest operational readiness on the 22nd of March, with just 2 out of the 33 Jagdtigers operational. 2 Jagdtigers of this unit took part in combat near an enemy bunker line adjacent to the German town of Auenheim on the 17th of January 1945. Attached to the 14th SS Army Corps, they were used for fire support for an infantry attack. The next day, they were in action again against American forces, and the German report on their action showed that their accuracy at 1 kilometer against the enemy bunker was excellent. After just 2 shots, the armored cupola of the bunker was burning. When the Americans counterattacked with tanks, 1 Sherman was hit and knocked out using a high explosive shell. In total, these 2 vehicles fired 56 shells and suffered no losses to enemy fire. The unit did lose at least 1 Jagdtiger in this period though. It was later captured by US forces after having been abandoned in working order. On the 5th of February 1945, the 653rd Battalion had 22 Jagdtigers ready for action and a further 19 under repair when it supported the left flank of 1st Army of Army Group G in action in the region of the Drusenheimer Forest, near the French-German border. Whatever tactical successes the unit may have had, however, were at odds with a hopeless strategic situation, and on the 5th of May 1945, the remaining Jagdtigers of this battalion surrendered to Allied forces near Amstetten, where Soviet and American forces had met. 1 Jagdtiger that surrendered there was subsequently taken back to the Soviet Union and remains in the collection at Kubinka. The other user of the Jagdtiger was the 512th Heavy Tank Destroyer Battalion, formed on the 11th of February 1945 at Paderborn. 42 Jagdtigers were destined for this unit, and it was expected to be fully operational by the beginning of March 1945. The 1st Company, under the command of Oberleutnant Ernst, had only half its nominal complement of 12 Jagdtigers when it engaged US forces at the Remagen bridgehead. These 6 tanks first retreated to the area of Siegen, and then on through the Ludenscheid-Hagen area to the Erkstay region, and then once more to relieve German forces at Unna. The 2nd Company, under the command of Oberleutnant Karius, was shipped by rail to the area of Siegburg, where it fought alongside the 53rd Panzer Corps. 2 vehicles were lost, and the 2nd Company retreated along the Sieg, where 2 more were lost to enemy air attacks. There were 2 further losses in combat around Siegen and Weidenau due to mechanical failures. On the 11th of April 1945, the 2nd Company was involved in the defense of Unna against the 1st and 9th US armies advancing on Paderborn, but could do little to stop the Allied advance. The 2nd Company, with 7 Jagdtigers, surrendered on the 15th of April. The 1st and 3rd Companies fared no better and surrendered on the 16th of April. In its short existence, the unit had achieved relatively little, although the 1st Company was credited with destroying 16 enemy tanks in the region south of Unna alone. 9 Jagdtigers of this battalion remained in Austria and were put to use by the 6th SS Panzer Army. On the 9th of May 1945, they engaged Soviet tank forces and destroyed several enemy tanks before the tankmen abandoned their last 2 serviceable vehicles and retreated toward the Americans to surrender to them rather than the Soviets. An unknown number of Jagdtigers were also used in the region of the Harz Mountains at the end of the war. This concludes our video on the Jagdtiger. What do you think of this vehicle? Was it a total waste of resource and time, or a potentially effective tank hunter that simply did not have time to show its true color? Was this just a case of too much too late? Or was there merit to the Jagdtiger in other strategic circumstances? Share your opinion in the comment section. If you haven't done so already, we invite you to subscribe to stay updated on future content. If you'd like to contribute further, consider supporting us on Patreon or PayPal. Your contributions help us create more engaging videos. Until next time, stay focused and stay tuned.